Good day, everyone. Welcome to AVPN's first South Asia Impact Capital Festival. I am Kevin Teo, COO at AVPN, and your MC for this session. Thank you for joining us today. Many of you have been following the festival since last week, but for those of you new to AVPN, we are a network of funders and resource providers with over 600 members across 32 markets. Our mission is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors like yourselves opportunities to connect with key stakeholders across various sectors and markets to learn from one another and to find opportunities for action. We will be sharing highlights of our day live on Twitter, so don't forget to share your experience with us by using the hashtags AVPN South Asia 2021, hashtag Impact Capital, and hashtag Social Impact. Throughout the month of February, the festival will spotlight best practices and solutions that AVPN members are delivering across India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Each week is focused on a different thematic area, last week being healthcare, and for this week, livelihoods. We will continue to climate action and education for the next 2 weeks. We've included recordings of all prior sessions, which you can access through the agenda link on the platform. And on that note, we'd like to inform you that this session will be recorded and you will be able to access all recordings for 3 weeks after the festival. A group of partners have helped us to make this festival possible, and you can find useful guides and resources in the virtual booths they have set up. Please click on the Festival Partners tab to chat with the relevant partner representatives. We encourage you to chat with your speakers and fellow delegates in this session, and you can do this through the chat tab located next to the streaming window. This session will discuss women farmer producer organizations and approaches for strengthening rural livelihoods. Our moderator for the session today is Madhu Ketan, Program Director at Pradhan. Madhu Ketan is a development professional who has worked with Pradhan for close to 30 years. She has worked at Pradhan's field locations in Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh for 23 years. Madhu is recognized for her work on institution building and farm-based livelihoods. Welcome, Madhu, and over to you, please.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. And I welcome everyone to today's panel discussion on, as Kevin said, women FPOs and other approaches for strengthening rural livelihoods. Today, we have two eminent speakers with us, Ms. Sarita Behel from Bayer Foundation and Mr. Srihari Chitti from Pradhan. Let me take a few minutes to introduce them. Sarita leads the corporate social responsibility function for Bayer South Asia and is also the director of Bayer Foundation India. An experienced and versatile leader, she has over the years successfully overseen the communications and public affairs function for Bayer South Asia, Pfizer, and Monsanto, among others. She specializes in stakeholder engagement, sustainability, and communications. A certified coach, Sarita is an alumnus of Tata Institute of Social Sciences and the Swedish Institute of Management Program. The other panelist today is Srihari Chitti from Pradhan. Pradhan is one of the foremost development agencies engaged in improving livelihoods of rural poor in India. Srihari is a development professional of more than 15 years experience in some of the poorest regions of the country on various livelihoods and poverty alleviation initiatives. He has an in-depth appreciation of farm and allied sector and issues faced by small and marginal farmers, especially women. Currently, he's coordinating the resource mobilization, communication, and partnership efforts of Pradhan. Before I go over to my two speakers for the day, let me just in 2 minutes set the backdrop of the session. Today, more than ever as we talk, there is need to work in a concerted manner on resurgence of rural livelihoods. We talk in the backdrop of a post-COVID economy where the GDP is poised to contract by 7.7% in 2021, rising unemployment figures 6.9% in October as compared to 3.5% in February 2019. Rural livelihoods has, however, demonstrated a resilience even during the lockdown period. On the other hand, we are also witness to a phenomena of, low progress on gender equality indicators, and India is even falling behind South Asian neighbors such as Bangladesh and Nepal. In such a scenario, how are women headed FPOs and other approaches showing us the way ahead, not only in impacting poverty, but also addressing other sustainable development goals such as gender equality? Let me first turn to Sarita. Sarita, as the panel behind you reads, Bayer has a very striking mission statement of health for all and hunger for none, and has been working in India for close to 10 years now. Today, I would like you to share with our audience Bayer's inclusive and very innovative CSR approach and strategy of impacting rural livelihoods.
Thank you, Madhu. And thank you, AVPN, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Just a small correction. Bayer has been in India for more than 120 years. The foundation is around 11 years old. Right? We set up the Bayer Foundation India 11 years ago to sort of streamline all our societal impact programs. We have 7 legal entities in India, so it kind of made sense to pull in all the resources and run it through the foundation. Madhu, you're very right. Our vision statement, health for all, hunger for none, is a very powerful statement, and it encapsulates what Bayer stands for. I just want to, make you think for a moment that place the emphasis on all and none. And when you see that, you understand the huge enormity of the challenge that we have in front of us, wherein we aspire to ensure that nobody stays hungry and everybody stays healthy. Now, certainly this cannot be achieved alone, right? Hence, all our work towards societal impact is looking at partners and through partnership mode. I also want to take a moment and talk about, last year when the pandemic occurred, I think it made us realize, very, very strongly that there was food on the table. There continued to be food on the table, right? Vegetables were coming, markets were running. We could, even if, we had to change the supply mechanism, we could not go to the shops. The shopkeepers sent the vegetables, or big societies put up vegetable shops inside their complexes. There was food on the table. Pharmacies were open. And it got attention that amidst all the new lexicons that we were learning about social distancing, wash your hands, wear your mask, uh, the lot more people were also going hungry. People were losing their jobs, and at the same time, there was a section of the society that was having access to food and medicine. So I think the paradox has never been as stark as it was during the pandemic. And our approach and our vision, I think, suddenly became far more critical to us as that happened. And for us, it's the inclusive approach, as I said, comes through working with partners. And we focus a lot on smallholder farmers and the communities in rural Indias. And maybe over a period of it, as we go ahead, I would like to share a little bit more on how we reach out to this pocket of population.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sarita, for laying out the overview for us. I'll now go over to Srihari from Pradhan. Srihari, tell us a little bit about, what is Pradhan's unique contribution and also strategy for promoting rural livelihoods, and how do FPOs fit into it?
Thanks, Madhu. I see there are three parts to your question. One is about Pradhan's contribution, again Pradhan's strategy and how FPOs fit into it. So let me start with Pradhan's contribution first. So Pradhan is one of India's foremost agencies working on large-scale rural poverty alleviation for the last 38 years. Given the deep deprivation in rural pockets, particularly among tribal and vulnerable groups, Pradhan promotes sustainable livelihoods integrated with work on issues of gender, governance, and access to rights and entitlements. So Pradhan currently works with around 1 million women across 8,600 villages spread across 36 districts in 7 states in India. 70% of the people that Pradhan works with belongs to vulnerable groups such as Dalits and tribal communities. Pradhan is one of the pioneers and innovator of the self-help group model in India and has established various livelihood models in farm-based livelihood, integrated natural resource management, livestock development, micro-enterprise promotion, and development of forest-based livelihoods. Currently, Pradhan is National Support Organization to National Rural Livelihood Mission, the flagship rural development program of Government of India. Pradhan has also helped to promote many sectoral institutions like Tasar Development Foundation, which helps thousands of farmers in forest-fringed villages of Jharkhand, Odisha, Bihar, and West Bengal to earn livelihood by rearing Tasar silkworms, selling the cocoons, spinning and weaving the yarn, and by producing Tasar silk fabrics. And institutions like National Smallholder Poultry Development Trust for small landholders, which are among the largest organized efforts in the country. 13,000 smallholders are benefiting from this activity, and last year they had more than 500 crores rupees of turnover in the NSPDT. Now coming to your second question, the strategy of Pradhan. So if I say the strategy has 4 broad pillars. The first one is it is context specific. Pradhan operates in various socio-economic and different agroclimatic zones. So the livelihoods it facilitates differ from place to place. For example, in southern Odisha, the major livelihoods are vegetable cultivation, millet cultivation, livestock promotion, while in Jharkhand, it is vegetable cultivation, mango orchards, and Tasar, silk rearing. Now, coming to the second strategy, it is women-centric. Like Pradhan promotes women institutions and strengthens them to take up various livelihood activities related to agriculture, livestock, micro-enterprise, and forest-based livelihoods. Now, the third strategy is Pradhan follows a leverage model. It links the women with various stakeholders, especially government, to leverage finances. So Pradhan works on a model where every rupee spent on Pradhan brings in 4 rupees investment at community level, which further translates into 11 rupees as income. We call it as a 1:4:11 model. The fourth pillar is, or the fourth strategy is like sustainable institution. Pradhan believes that its role is temporary in the whole process. So it promotes women institutions such as women self-help groups, federations, and women FPOs and strengthen them so that they can take forward the development process ahead in future without much support of Pradhan. So this sustainable institution strategy brings me to the third aspect of your question, how FPOs fit into the strategy. We know in India more than 85% farmers are small and marginal, and few of the major issues they face are access to knowledge, inputs, technology, capital, infrastructure, and market. And these FPOs can play a major role in mitigating these issues. For example, in case of access to knowledge, these FPOs can teach improved package of practices and they can give knowledge about sustainable methods of cultivation to the farmers. In case of access to inputs, these FPOs can facilitate good quality seeds, fertilizer in fair price at the doorstep of farmers. In case of access of technology, these FPOs are working as custom hiring centers and availing tractors, power tillers, power sprayers, power weeders on rental basis to these farmers. In case of access to capital, these FPOs are working as a media for availing credit and they are ensuring timely repayment. In case of access to infrastructure, these FPOs are linking the farmers to government departments and other private players for irrigation infrastructures and other required infrastructure. And in case of access to market, they are also bringing in institutional market at the doorstep of the farmer for better price realization of farmers. So I think I could answer your question. So if I have anything more to say, I can answer further.
Thanks a lot, Srihari. Thanks a lot for laying out the contours of the approach. Sarita, I mean, coming back to you, I mean, would you? That's a very interesting integration of, you know, typically, I mean, in the mainstream, we kind of view them as very different. I mean, two different silos, health and livelihoods. So how does, you know, Bayer approach it, and how does it kind of bring together these two dimensions? And I see there's actually, as you know, a lot of complementarity, because if you don't have a, you know, good health, you cannot actually embark on pursuit of dignified livelihood. So how does Bayer look at this, and how does Bayer actually take forward this integration?
Madhu, I'm so glad you asked this question. You know, when we look at our global vision, as you said, health for all, hunger for none, and then we look at the purpose of Bayer, which is science for a better life. You merge these two, and what comes out is a mandate for food security, food quality, and better healthcare. And then on the other hand, if you look at the India mandate from the company's law, right, what is required under CSR, you have poverty elevation, malnutrition, rural development, promoting education, environmental sustainability, you know, gender equality. And you marry those, right? When we married those, thus was born our strategy. So our strategy focus areas came out of these two pillars, one from the global vision and purpose, and the other from the India mandate. And the key three thematic focus areas that we address coincidentally also address a lot of UN sustainable development goals like zero hunger, zero poverty, and working with partners. Let me take you through all the three of them in a little bit. The rural development focus, I find a lot of, I concur with what Sri Hari says. Smallholder farmers really need handholding. They need to be given knowledge. You know, farmers are not afraid of technology and knowledge. What they miss out on is getting in hold of that information. We work very, very closely with smallholder farmers across 18 states and, you know, more than around 200 districts, reaching out to over 2 lakh smallholder farmers. Now, how did we zero on to these districts? Very interestingly, we mapped the Human Development Index figures with the aspirational districts of the government to come up with the geography that we felt we should reach out. Because these were the areas where the smallholder farmers were, you know, very, very inaccessible to information, knowledge, which such as best agronomic practices, safe use of chemicals, or how do you really maximize use of irrigation, or weather information, or sow well, sell well, and grow well, right? Within that, also we are looking at defunct FPOs, right? Because we feel that we need to revive them, look at that, and our focus is on nurturing women and strengthening them and empowering them to reach up. You know, if you close your eyes, and I would urge everybody in the audience to close their eyes and think of a farmer, and I can bet 100% you would think of a male figure. And that's what we want to correct. We want you to think of women as a farmer, because believe it or not, she is the backbone in agriculture. The second focus area, as you rightly said, is healthcare. And there we want to look at preventive healthcare, because we believe a lot of healthcare issues can be resolved if the diagnosis is done right up front. And prevention through access and prevention through awareness would be a very, very important tool to use. So focus on health, hygiene, and nutrition is the second pillar that we really want to work on. And the third is, community engagement, which is sacrosanct to us. We have multiple manufacturing plants across the country, and we want to look at them as, develop a unified strategy where we want to focus on developing scientific temperament in children, especially the STEM education, and look at how do we provide even employee volunteering facilities to our, colleagues, so that they can become an integral part of the societal impact programs that we do in our communities. But having said this, Madhu, the, what actually matters is how do you convert these ideas in the ground, and what really matters. So I think couple of if I would say so, non-negotiable parameters that are important for us is one is a long-term perspective, because you do not see impact in a day one, day two, or even day year. Yeah, one day one, year one. It takes sometimes 2 to 3 years to see change, and we are talking about behavior changes, mindset changes, and with societal impact invading the DNA of Bayer, it takes time. What we also are is non-negotiable to us is impact assessment, as I said, partnership, and very, very strong, measurable, defined indicators, KPIs that we want to bring in on the table for each and every program that we do. And I want to once again, sort of emphasize that this is something, this kind of holistic solution that we want to bring in end to end for women in aspirational district with partnership. It really requires a very robust framework and strong partners who can join hands together with common belief, common values to uplift the rural communities across the country.
Thanks a lot, Sarita. So I had, lots of supplementary questions, especially, impact. The question of impact always is so interesting to actually, listen. But I think I'll come back to you after, a follow-up question with Srihari. So Srihari, I mean, again, I'm struck by, the fact that, women, the point that Sarita also said that, when you think of farmer, you think of a man, although women do like 70% of the farming work, which is largely, remains invisible, although I think much of the focus is now coming and the discourse is changing. So why did it, why did Pradhan kind of think it prudent to, focus on forming women FPOs? And are there problems in, considering all the barriers in decision making, the land not being in their name, etc., and all the other things that come with it?
That's a very pertinent question, Madhu, and thanks for asking that. So all of us know that women play a significant role in agriculture sector, especially in the small and marginal farm household. From my own experience, I can say that 80% of the agricultural work in these households are taken care by women. Nevertheless, they never get the recognition. No one identifies them as farmers. They don't have any say in decision making. They don't own any agricultural related assets, and they do not have any control on income and expenditure of the household. And they never participate in forums, and they are never called for any meetings as farmers, and you never see them negotiating anywhere in the market. So what Pradhan thinks is, like, as I had spoken earlier about the strategy, one is women centric approach, and the second one is like issues related to the small and marginal farm household. So if we want to address both the issues, one is related to women along with issues of small and marginal farm households, I think promotion and nurturing of women FPOs is one of the best way forward. Pradhan has been steadfastly working on these women institutions, and the National Smallholder Poultry Development Trust that I spoke of earlier is one such institution. And there are a number of other women FPOs that Pradhan has promoted. And I see they have done fantastic work in enhancing the income at one hand and establishing women as farmers on the other. Therefore, I think it makes a lot of sense for investing on women FPOs.
Okay. So which brings us to the question of, impact and measurement, and what kind of benefits have we experienced, have we measured? So open question to both of you, Sarita and Srihari, on, what are the kind of impacts that we have seen over the years? So Sarita, if you can go first on this.
Madhav, if I may say so, the biggest impact, what I have witnessed since the almost 4 years in there is the very shift within our mindset of instead of going solo, go with partners. Yeah, but not to do with the impact question, but the way the thinking has changed, right? When you embrace partners, when you look at people or other corporates with your same value system bringing in their funds and saying, okay, let's together instead of reaching one geography, now reach 10 and amplify. You're already shifting the needle somewhere. Also, I think what we are looking at, we are not looking at an outcome based assessment, right? Okay, we run a health education program, so many people attended. We ran a farmer awareness program, so many people attended the program. So what next? I think that's the crucial question, which means you have to be on the ground year on year till you find a change in attitude, till you find maybe a change in cropping pattern, till you find somebody using that knowledge and getting into maybe agriculture diversification or, non-agriculture, poultry, goat rearing, something like that. That can only come if you have a long-term approach. And that is where I think impact assessment comes in. And I also want to place an emphasis that this impact assessment has to be done impartially. It's very easy for me to do my own impact assessment. That, but I can fall into a trap over there. So I think what we need, we are very clear, we need audited systems, we need documentation, and we need an impact assessment that year on year showcases how things are changing so that for us also it's a tool to reflect and introspect. Are we on the right path? Are we giving the community what they want? Often we go with the idea of what we want to say. I think the approach we are taking is what does the community want? And can we deliver that? If not us, can we bring in partners? Can we work together and work on that particular agenda that the community is seeing? So for me, impact assessment is on a continuum. It cannot be on year one. It has to be over, say, 3 years period or something where we really notice behavioral changes and capture those very changes.
Srihari, what are the 2-3 impact indicators which Pradhan thinks are very important? And, and any impact evaluations carried out and, what has been the progress?
So I agree with many of the things that Sarita said about the impact evaluation. Like the evaluation should be done on a continuous manner, and we need to check whether our approaches are working, and if not, then what changes we can make to our approaches, kind of. So there are a lot of indicators that the Pradhan track. So there can be qualitative indicators and quantitative indicators. And qualitative indicators, as I said, like we are tracking whether there is an increase in say in decision making in case of agriculture, what kind of crops to be taken, and if there is an increase in ownership in agriculture related assets, and if there is an increased control of women on income and expenditure pattern of the house, and about the mobility of the women, how much they are now outgoing and participating in forums, and how much they are participating in the market negotiation. So these are some of the qualitative indicators that we are tracking. Along with that, there are quantitative indicators also, like the income. So with our interventions, how much income enhancement has happened over the years in that family, and how much the woman has earned because of our interventions. So I can quote 2-3 impact assessments that has been done by the third party, and they were hired by the donors. Like in case of a project that we did with Axis Bank Foundations in Chhattisgarh and MP, we found that from the base income of 22,000, the community has gone up to 75,000 in a 5 years time period. So that was quite an achievement for us, and we saw like a lot of our approaches worked well. And as the baseline was also low, so there was a great jump seen in their income through our efforts. And in one of the other projects that we did with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it was a power project. There also we saw that the target was to increase the income of the community by at least 15,000 rupees for 3.5 lakh families across Jharkhand, Odisha, and Bihar. And Sambodhi did the third-party evaluation for us, and there also it was found that with our interventions, there was an enhancement of more than 15,000 income in the intervened families. So these are the kind of indicators that we track, and also in these evaluations we have found there are approaches which are not working that well. So that also gives us like that what changes that we need to do in our approaches to bring much further improvement in the lives of the community in future.
Great, thanks a lot, Srihari. And I'm reminded, I'm looking at the time, but we have just 1 minute each. I mean, what is the kind of, your take on partnerships? Just, probably a couple of minutes each, and then we can wrap up the discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Madhu. I would like to table that we are looking at holistic solutions to uplift communities. And when I say that, I'm talking about an ecosystem approach. So if we know agriculture, I'm looking at partners who can bring in different set of skill sets. And how do we really provide a whole solution, end-to-end solution, if I may say so, to a community that we work in, so whether it is women and whether it is then that they require financial digital literacy, or whether it is children who require STEM knowledge or education, or whether it is a smallholder farmer who requires agronomic practice knowledge, or it's healthcare, right? Or whether you want to talk of water harvesting systems, we want to talk about any other need-based assessment that is done with the community and that comes in, which we at Bayer are not expert in, then I would like to bring in a partner. I would like to bring in an investor, a funder, or a corporate to say, hey, let's join hands and do this. So that's the approach to partnerships that we would really look like to provide end-to-end solutions to communities.
Srihari, 1 minute, your closing thoughts on partnership.
Yeah. In Pradhan, we put a lot of give a lot of value to partnership. We understand that we are a very small player in this whole game, and this the issues at the grassroots are very complex and to be solved by any one player. It requires concerted effort by different partners. So we have been approaching all these issues in a partnership mode only. I'll give you 1-2 examples. Like in Odisha, we are doing a project on agriculture production clusters to enhance income of 100,000 tribal households. So in that case, the partners are Pradhan, then Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation, Government of Odisha, 3-4 departments of Government of Odisha are engaged. Along with that, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has come on board. Also, there is a network of NGOs working in that project. Pradhan is the lead and the secretariat holder. So I would say like there are so many people working together and trying to bring change. And I think that is non-negotiable kind of thing. So that is why I say like if the government and the non-profits and the corporates and the community institutions all work together in a very concerted manner, then the issues at the grassroots can be solved to some level.
Thanks a lot, Srihari, and thank you, Sarita. That was an excellent and stimulating discussion. What struck me was the intersectionality of approaches, and I'll not go into it. I think many thanks for sharing your wonderful work with us, and I hand it over now to Kevin. Kevin, over to you.
Thanks so much, Madhu. And thanks, Sarita and Srihari, for your sharing. I've learned that the face of farming is female, and taking a women-centric, end-to-end, multifaceted approach is required to have tangible long-term impact on rural livelihoods. Since no single entity can furnish all required solutions, collaboration and partnership is essential to achieve greater leverage on resources. This session is made possible with the kind support of our festival partners, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Sesame Workshop India, the Rockefeller Foundation, COVID Action Collab, VNV Advisory Services, the British Asian Trust, WPP India CSR Foundation, Catalyst Management Services, and SATPA. Do share your highlights of this session on social media, and remember to tag us using the hashtag AVPN South Asia 2021 and hashtag social impact. Up next, my colleague Hiral from AVPN's India team will introduce the session on exploring empathy-led approaches in agriculture. You can find the link to this session in the agenda page of the platform. Thank you once again, and please enjoy the rest of this festival. Thank you, Sarita, Srihari, and Madhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Sarita.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madhu, that was, thank you.